Welcome everyone to the Redesigning School Counseling webcast for first year schools. This is the last in our webcast series, and in this webcast we'll be talking about preparing to implement the activities that you designed and selected in your last advisory council meeting. So today's agenda is to, for the very last time, do a quick review of the RSC beliefs, process, and products. And then we'll talk about the preparation and then go through things in the online system. You'll notice that in this webinar we are not preparing for an advisory council meeting. Our advisory council meetings are finished, and so now we're doing the work post-advisory council meetings to get ready for next year. So first let's start with our quick review. And again, once again, our beliefs. We believe that school counseling programs help students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. As you know, researchers have shown that schools that have gone through RSC have raised student achievement, statistically raised student achievement, and we believe this is wise because RSC school counseling programs focus on helping kids make sound choices. So here is the pyramid that kind of shows this belief. Again, we believe that school counselors help kids when students are involved in sound guidance and counseling programs, they make sound choices and then achievement goes up. And so this year when we designed the program, we started with the school's achievement goals. We said, okay, what choices do kids need to make in order to reach those goals? And then what guidance and counseling activities do we need to put in place to help kids reach to help kids make those choices? So here's the process. We're now on the last step of the process. In the very beginning, last summer, we worked on getting ready. You put together your steering team, your advisory council. You all have done a wonderful job, I think, with putting your advisory councils together. Then you met with your advisory council. You did an introduction where you talked about terminology and just what was all RSC all about. Then in October, you created a vision, a picture of what everything would be like if your dreams came true. And then in November, you defined the program goals, which were expressed as student choices. What were all of the choices that you wanted students in your building to make? Then we came back to reality and we said, okay, there's a gazillion choices on that list. In reality, this is how much time and this is how much funding we have and energy. So then your advisory council started to explore how can we increase counselor time and counselor resources so that we can tackle more of those program goals. After expanding the resources, then you targeted 1, 2, 3 small number of goals that would become your primary goals, your priority goals, and you would really focus your program on addressing those student choices. Then in February we looked at a lot of data to help you determine why kids are not making the choices that we want them to make. We thought it might be a knowledge issue, so we looked at the guidance data. It might be an issue where kids have personal or social issues that they're bringing to the table. So we looked at the counseling needs data. And then it also might be just we're not giving kids the opportunities to make the choices that we'd like them to make. So we looked at opportunity data to see, you know, do kids in our school have the opportunity to make the choices that we want them to make? So then once we figured out what was getting in the way, at your last meeting you talked about, okay, what are we going to do about it? So what activities are we going to put in place to help address the reasons that kids aren't making the choices that we want them to make? So as of today, we have a list of activities. Now today what we want to do is further prepare those activities. So we're going to look at developing some guidance lessons for some of your activities. We'll also look at a program calendar, a year-long program calendar, and then also we'll put together an annual budget. So that's the process. Here are the products that we have already. The items that are in red are things that you've already developed. They're already in the online system. They're ready to go. Today we're going to look at lesson plans, an annual calendar, and an annual budget. Okay, so let me see. Anybody have any questions? Any hands going up? Given that this is like the 10 millionth time you've heard this introduction, I think there's probably no questions. Okay, So what I'd like to do is just go online and show you the part of the process page where this is addressed, and then also look at the rubric for these items. So let me go to the online system, and here we go. Okay, before we get into the process page, there's one other point, one other part of the online system that I want to make sure that we've talked about today. This is something we talked about at the first meeting, but I just want to make sure that everybody has done this so that your portfolios get reviewed appropriately. If, when you get a chance, click on the RSC Uses tab, and on this tab there's a couple things I'd like you to check for. The first one is please make sure that you've indicated that you're going through the first year process, so please make sure that this is checked and that you've saved. And then in the bottom questions, this helps us know who's expecting a review this year. So in the bottom questions, we're looking at, does your school currently have ramp status? No. Are you seeking the ramp status? Yes, if you are. And then, when do you anticipate submitting your school counseling portfolio to ASCA? If you went through this training with us in 2013-14, that means that everything would be submitted to ASCA prior to October 15th, 2014. So you'll get instructions from if you're in Indiana, you'll get instructions from our State Department on how to go about doing that. And if you're outside Indiana, just go to the ASCA website and you'll find your instructions. Okay, then the next question says, and this is only for Indiana schools, does your school currently have the Gold Star counseling status? No. Are you seeking it? Yes. And then what date do you anticipate submitting your portfolio for review? On that one, your date would be June 30th, 2014. That's your deadline if you're completing the RSC process this year for the Gold Star Award. So please, when you, after the webinar and you're online, please make sure that those are checked correctly. That shows our organization, and if you're in Indiana, it also shows the Indiana Department of Education that you're expecting and that you need a review this summer for your portfolio. Okay, so I'm going to click Save. Okay, so a little bit of catch up there. Now let's go into this month's work. So I'm going to click on the Process tab. And we've done all of the steps in the beginning, and I'm going to get down to preparing to implement. So these are the April tasks. Okay, so you'll see the first step is to watch a webcast, and actually the webcast that we're recording right now is going to be linked to this icon. Then we want to enter some lesson plans. Before I do that, I'd like to go over the rubric items for the lesson plans so you'll see why we're doing what we're doing. So I'll come down here to the last step where it says review the rubric items. I'm going to open up the rubric, and here is the rubric for the lesson plans. So this is what we're looking for. When the reviewers look at your portfolio, they're going to be checking to make sure that there are 3 academic lesson plans present. You probably have dozens of academic activities, but we need to make sure that at least 3 of them have lesson plans developed for them. Ideally they'd all have lesson plans, but the minimum that the reviewers will check for are 3. Then 3 career lesson plans, 3 personal social lesson plans. Then in the online system, you're given an opportunity to indicate information about each of your lesson plans. The grade level, the student groups that the lesson is going to address, the setting, if it's an individual one-on-one lesson or if it's a classroom lesson, which guidance indicators that lesson is addressing, summary of the lesson, how much time it takes, a procedure, a step-by-step like a cookbook procedure for that lesson, how you're going to evaluate the lesson, if you need resources, and if you're borrowing a lesson from somebody else, a citation to whoever you borrowed that lesson from. So those are the criteria for the lesson plans. Then ASCA and Gold Star in Indiana, they also want to make sure that you have lesson plans for the activities that you're doing in group counseling. So you need to select one of your groups, and if it's a 10-week group and in that 10 weeks you're doing 7 different lessons, then you would put in quick 7 lesson plans. So a lesson plan is present for each group counseling activity within that one group. The lesson plans describe the focus of the group, the number of students participating in that lesson, and the name of the school counselor who's going to facilitate that group. So a couple of extra criteria if the lesson plan is for a group counseling lesson. And then finally, ASCA and DOE would like to see one lesson plan that's addressing an achievement gap. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I think more than anything, that's what I get questions about and phone calls about. So we know that, especially in Indiana, that your school improvement plans also have identified groups of students who are not achieving at a comparable level with their peers. And you have specific achievement goals for specific student groups, like your free and reduced lunch students or Hispanic students or boys or some group. So what we would like, what ASCA and DOE would like, Indiana DOE would like, is for you to also design at least one guidance lesson that would address the issues that that student group may be experiencing that is causing them to have that achievement gap. In our organization, we like to refer to these as guidance gaps. So you'd be looking for a guidance gap that corresponded to an achievement gap. So, for example, if one of your achievement goals was to improve some aspect of math achievement for your free and reduced lunch students, you might look then through all of your guidance data, and if you noticed, for example, that your free and reduced lunch students didn't know where to find extra help opportunities in your school, then you could develop a guidance lesson around that, with the understanding that if your free and reduced lunch students started to understand where they got extra help, then that would in turn cause the academic achievement to go up. So that is a closing the gap lesson plan. Then another question that I get in this is, let's say you were doing a specific lesson that was targeted at, let's just say, free and reduced lunch kids. Let's say you were trying to help them learn where to find extra help. And you start to think, well, gosh, our paid lunch kids, they don't know where to find extra help either. Some of them, more of them do, but there's still some paid lunch kids. We want to do this activity with all of our kids. That's fine as long as you have thought about what is it specifically about the free and reduced lunch kids that makes them have that knowledge at a less rate. Is it that a lot of your low-income kids are not in classes where that's typically thought about, or just to go through that thinking and then to tweak that lesson so that it will pull in the targeted group at a greater rate. So, okay, so and when we get to questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about that. But I wanted to kind of talk about these rubric items before we started talking about how to get lessons into the system. Okay, so I'm going to go back now. So I'm going to enter my lesson plans. So I'm going to go over here to the Enter column. I'm going to click Enter. And the first thing the tool we wanted to give you is just a reminder of what the program activities are that you could be designing your lessons around. So I would go into that report, and this is demo school. I don't have a lot of activities in here, but I've got, activities in here, and actually I'm not in as demo school. Okay, I'm not sure how that happened. Let me go back and do that. There, now I'm demo school. Back to processes and down to preparing to implement and lesson plans. Okay, so the first thing I've done is just given you a list of your program activities, and so I can go in here and say, I'd like to develop a lesson plan for the AP Summer Academy, or for the dual credit recruitment luncheon, or whatever your guidance activities are. So then, so you're going to choose the activities that you want to develop your lesson plans for. Then, let's say that one of your program activities was what? I'm sorry, I'm seeing one other thing I want to do here. Let me get rid of these. Oops. So I'm showing you also, if you get a lesson in you don't want, this is how easy it is to get rid of it. I got ahead of myself. I was practicing and I forgot to take these out. Okay, so when you log in, it's going to look like this. Okay, so let's say in these program activities, one of your activities is to do a career interest inventory, but you have no idea how to do that. You've never done one. You don't know where to find resources for it. So one of the things that you could do is you could search for that activity, in lesson plans for that activity that have been implemented by other schools. So I'm going to click on lesson plans from other RSC schools. And if I wanted to do a career interest inventory, I could enter that in, do a search, and see what comes up. And there are 5 lesson plans that have already been entered into our system by other schools who have agreed to share them with you. And so I can kind of read through these. One of the things you might want to look for is how many other schools have imported the activities. That would kind of be an indicator to me that this is a pretty strong lesson plan. This first one, actually, it's one that I wrote, so that could be one that you could read and get ideas from. You could look at the full lesson plan. And that gives you all kinds of things, including resources that another school counselor has put in. And then if you like that lesson plan, and I'd read several. There's another one. Here's one that 6 schools have imported that they liked. So I'd kind of look through all of them. Then let's say, okay, I like this lesson plan that the first one here, and instead of like redoing everything, I just want to import that into my system. So I'm just going to click import into my school's lesson plans, and I've done that, and now that is in my school's lesson plans. So I'm going to go back, and we can see, I need to refresh this page, but we can see here it is. So, and when I open this, if I want to edit it, if I scroll down, I can see that there is a citation to the original person that wrote that lesson plan. So if you choose to share your lesson plans, your name and your school and stuff will be there. And then you can edit these. If you didn't like the way that the author worded something, you can do that. Or you could say, I don't want to do this with my 9th, 10th. I'm just going to change that right now. 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. I want to do it with my 7th graders. So, and then just save, and that will change that in your system. Okay, so go back. And There we go. If I refresh this page, you'll see that the grade level here switched to grade 7. So in this list here, you'll also see that there's some information that's missing. We've updated the system a little bit and added some other fields. So again, you can just go into edit, like on the guidance area that's missing, you can just go into edit and add that in. So that's a kind of an easy way to get lesson plan ideas, just import them from other schools. But let's say you just want to start from scratch. You already have a great lesson, you've been doing it, you just want to describe what you're already doing or what you plan to do. So in that case, I'm just going to enter a lesson plan that I create, and I'm going to give the lesson a title. I'm blanking. Career Exploration Online, and maybe I'm going to do that with 7th graders as well. And here is where you can indicate if this is an activity that's a guidance gap activity. And let's say let's say I've discovered that my low-income kids, my free and reduced lunch kids, they have not done as much career exploration as the paid lunch kids. So I could come down and check that this is for free and reduced lunch students. The setting that I'm going to do this in is classroom guidance. I'm going to bring a group in and do that. And then here I would do a summary in this activity. And I'm going to talk about how many minutes this is going to take, or you can choose hours or class periods. I'm going to give the procedure, and I would suggest that you just do a step-by-step. That way, if something ever happens to you, or you go to another school, whoever replaces you can just open this lesson and just take off right where you left. So step 1 is, whatever it is. Okay, then in the evaluation, you're going to describe what you're going to count in order to do this. So we're going to count how the number of, actually I usually use the percentage of students, percentage of targeted students who have completed a career search online. And you probably want a little bit more detail in there. Resources needed, you can write, you're going to need a classroom with computers. You can put in websites, so www career search, I'm making this up, .org. You can upload the resources, so if you have an activity sheet that you want to make sure is part of your lesson plan and that you would like to share with other counselors, you can just browse your files and upload things there. If there's if this work is based on other work that's from other people, you want to make sure that you've given them a citation. We would prefer that you not reproduce and upload copyrighted materials in your lesson plans. But if you are using copyrighted materials, you can put the reference in there. And then collaborative partners, you may be doing this, maybe in your building one of your collaborative partners is your computer teacher that's going to co-teach this with you, and they're somehow integrating it with part of their classroom curriculum. And then finally, when you're all finished, you're just going to hit save. And then some questions pop up. First of all, we want to know that your lesson plan is complete. And then we're wondering if you would give ASA, our organization, permission to make the lesson plan available to people performing online searches for lesson plans using the RSC online system. So I hope you'll do that, but again, that's completely optional. I'm going to go ahead and click yes. And then this is further saying, okay, when ASA shares this information, we're going to include the name of your school and the city, and your name. So it's your name, or you can drop down and find the other people on your steering team, or if it's not someone who's listed there, then you can say someone who's not listed here. And then we also want to know, can we share your email address and your phone number so people who are interested in this activity can contact you. Okay, so then at the end you just save, and then if I go back, oops, where have I gone? Let's log back in. And I'm in this demo school. Okay, and we're going to go back to the process tab and down to lesson plans. Yeah, and there it is. Okay, when I look at this, I see there is one part that I forgot, and I'm going to go and edit it now, Career Exploration Online. I'll go into Edit, and what I forgot to do is to select the guidance indicators that go with this activity. So I'm going to click that. That opens up a pop-up, and to help you find the guidance indicators, let me explain these little codes out here. Before the first dot are the grade levels. So this was a 7th grade activity. I'm going to scroll down to the 6-8 indicators. The second number, 1, indicates which area of guidance it is. If it's a 1, it's academic guidance, 2 is career, and 3 is personal social. So I'm going to, since this is a career exploration activity, I'm going to scroll down to the career indicators, and then I would just check the ones that that would apply to this. So all you got to do is check, and then I'm going to go down and save again. And now instead of using the back button this time, I'm just going to go to the Process tab and scroll down to Prepare to Implement Lessons, and now my guidance area, the career, has popped into there. So that's good. Okay, so that is how to how to enter a lesson plan. And again, there's all those different requirements that ASCA and Gold Star have in terms of the types of lesson plans that you're putting in. Okay, so that's lesson plans. Now let's look at annual calendar. The annual calendar you actually don't have to do anything for. When you entered your activities last month, you said what date you were going to do each activity on. So the calendar's already in there. It's just a matter of opening it up. So, and again, in demo school, I don't have a lot of activities. In your calendar, there's going to be a gazillion activities after each month. Okay, so that's the activities. Then in this next part, we need to do one of two things. We either need to submit a budget if your program has a budget, or if your program does not have a budget, we need to enter a funding proposal. So let's look at the budget first. I think most school counseling programs do have small budgets. So I'm going to click on Enter Edit. And here is just a tool, kind of a wizard for you to create your budget. So this is our budget for 2014-15, and you would just write your first item, Career Explorer Software. Again, I'm just making this up. Then the category, personnel and fringe benefits, we would suggest you not put in, and we're in the process of taking those two categories out. So contracted services would be like if you hired a speaker or a consultant to come work with you. Rental, travel registration, phone, postage and supplies. This is a supply that I'll be using to support my program. And then the primary area, this is going to be used for career guidance, so it's a guidance It's going to support the guidance part of my program. Budget notes, you might put in something like I'm going to purchase 2 at $30 each, and then who the vendor is, Career Explorer, or whoever the vendor is, and then the amount. I've got 2 at 30, so that gives me $60. And notice my total down here is increasing as I put the amount in. Then I can add another budget item. I'd put that in, and if I put the amount for that one in, it would increase the total. So don't forget to save. You have to save the button below to save your changes. For some reason, everybody forgets to save on this page, so just make sure you hit save there. Okay, so that's the budget. Now, if you don't have a budget, what you can do is instead submit a funding proposal. So we're working on this right now. There will be an uploader button here that you'll click, and then whoever you have proposed funding, made a funding proposal to, you'll just upload the letter or the proposal or whatever you submitted. So that may be a funding proposal that you turn into your principal or to your community foundation or to a business that's part of your advisory council. So, just that you've requested funding to support your work. Okay, so that's that. And then finally on the rubric items, we already talked about the lesson plans, the annual calendar. The only rubric item is that it's there, and it will be because when you enter your activities, it just automatically gets created. And then the budget or funding proposal, the only criteria is that it's present. So, okay. So that's the April activities. It's mainly, the biggest task is just getting those lesson plans in. The rest will take you just a couple of minutes. The other thing to think about is, while this is a little time consuming, when you go to renew your Gold Star or your ramp 3 years from now, that will already, those lesson plans will already be in there, and if you're still doing them, you will not have to re-enter them when you renew. Okay, so very quickly, let's go back to the PowerPoint. I think that is it. Yeah, so that's it for the April activities, and as always, we'd like to end with just a reminder that you definitely make a difference in the lives of young people. So thank you very much.